let's talk uranium. Uranium glass was made from the 1830s until about the 1980s, but it is still made today, although there are certainly more regulations on it than there were in the 1800s, or let's even say the 30s. The 1930s were when it became popular because of the Great Depression. It was a cheap additive to dye, and let me say, of course, it is completely safe to keep because the uranium that it has inside is something called yellow cake, which is a more lead-based uranium compound. It's basically like a aftermath of, let's say, an atomic bomb. So it still has uranium in it, but it's more of a stable uranium than what are in the bombs. So, with that said, there is such a little tiny amount of uranium in them that it is completely safe to keep. It's just enough used as a dye. There's about 2%, I would say, in this, which it's a pretty big piece, I would say. But this is a 1930s-ish depression glass. You can tell because it is green in color. It glows beautifully, as you can tell. And yeah, also the style of it, of course. With that said, there are different types. For instance, Vaseline glass. This is yellow in person. I know it looks green because of my black lights. But it has a beautiful glow. It is yellow. That's how you know it's Vaseline. This one was made in 1986. So a little bit of a later piece for sure, but it is safe to handle. There's for sure more uranium, about 2 to 3% more than there was in depression glass, green depression glass. Next up is custard glass. This is Fenton. Fenton was for sure making a lot more from the 70s to the 80s when it came to uranium. This is a 1983 to 1984-ish. It is hand-painted. That's how I know it's Fenton. They had a certain thing to them, and that's what collectors tend to go for because they're just really pretty little pieces of art from the time. Next is jadeite. So, with the juicers, it is a little more difficult to use. All the other stuff you can completely use, other than the Fenton plate, because it's a collector's plate and there's nothing on the art for you to put something on it. It can scratch off pretty easily. So it's just for decoration. With this, I wouldn't recommend using this because of the lead in the yellow cake uranium. Citrus actually soaks up, and the repeative motion of like squeezing the citrus, it would wear down the glass and take the lead with it, so you can get lead poisoning from it. A little more likely than you are, let's say, the pitcher. You're not probably gonna get lead poisoning from this. So yeah. This is probably around the 20s. Jadeite was mainly used in the 20s. For instance, like the salt and pepper shakers. That's one of the more common ones. And juicers, too. Like this. Next up is my Fenton fairy lamp that is Burmese glass. So Burmese glass has a certain charm to it that stands out to a collector's because of the pink on the top. So that pink up there is actually natural to the glass. That's how you can distinguish it between custard glass and Burmese. So Fenton was actually not the original maker of Burmese glass, but they are the more common that you're going to find. They're pretty rare because these were made in the 70s. Around the 70s, they stopped making it, 80s-ish. But this is what you're going to find more likely than you are, let's say, the other brands of Burmese, because Fenton were the first ones after the original maker. I can't remember off the top of my head who they are, but Fenton was about the second, and people collect a lot of Burmese. Like I said before, it is hand painted. There's a signature on the inside right there. And this is probably my most expensive piece, I would say. But yeah. Okay, bye.